So Dax, I appreciate you getting on with me. Just kind of get your initial thoughts on FC Dallas's match coming up this weekend. I know they're playing, the bottom of the table and everything, but just what your thoughts have been so far with their season.
Yeah, there's been some good and some bad with FC Dallas this season, which, to be honest, I think has been a little bit expected anytime you bring in a new manager and a significant amount of new players, some significant roster turnover. I think there's always to be expected to see some growing pains. And to be honest, it's been interesting. The delineation between FC Dallas's road form and their home form. If you look at those splits, they've actually picked up every point that they've gotten this season on the road, and they have been pretty poor at home. And so, listen, you come back home against a struggling Sporting Kansas City team. FC Dallas coming off a good result on the road against Real Salt Lake. They should have confidence. They should be really excited and energized about this game. They need to play well in front of their home fans, and this is an opportunity, quite frankly, against a bad team in Sporting Kansas City for FC Dallas to start building some momentum. They haven't been able to build any momentum this year, so they have to get their first home win of the season against Sporting Kansas City.
As someone who, played for the club for a while, what is it that, what kind of advice would you give, a new player like Lucho to kind of, spring himself into the fan base?
Well, Lucho doesn't need any playing advice from me, certainly. He's a wonderful player in and of his own right. But one thing that I can tell him is that from my experience, the FC Dallas fans, they love you. They will love you if you work hard and you fight for the badge. And I think Lucho Acosta was in a tricky situation with FC Cincinnati. I think he opened up his heart to Cincinnati as a city and as a club. And I think that the fans that returned the favor, and it was pretty unfortunate to see how it ended there. But it tells me that Lucho Acosta, he has the ability to really ingrain himself in a fan base and in a club. That's what he did with FC Cincinnati. I think he can do that with FC Dallas. I think this is an FC Dallas team that loves their number 10s. If you look back to my time there with the David Ferreira, and even more recently with Amaro Diaz, this is a club that has been wowed pretty regularly with great number 10s. And I think Lucho Acosta can absolutely get to that point. For me, it's exciting to see what he can do when his connection with Lucho Acosta gets better. So I think FC Dallas defensively, they're a little bit of a conundrum. I think they have one of the best goalkeepers in MLS in Martin Paz. I don't think that there should be. I don't think there's any real goalkeeping controversy. I think Kaladi came in and did fine, and so it's good to know that when Martin Paz goes on international duty, you have a good backup who you can rely on. But for me, this back line is too inconsistent. I think that if this FC Dallas team wants to compete and if they want to be a playoff team, this back line has to be more connected. And I mentioned it, I forgot how many weeks ago, but I would like to see a leader emerge on this back line, whether that's Sebastian Ibiega or the new signing Ergahide. Is that how you pronounce? Yeah, Ergahide. I would really like to see one of them step up and take control of this back line because I see too many gaps. I see a back line that's a little bit disconnected. You have good fullbacks in Farfan and new signing Shaq Moore. You have international experience on the back line with Shaq Moore. I would like to see this FC Dallas team really try to build off of that Real Salt Lake result where they were able to get a clean sheet and see if they can build some momentum defensively. Because if you can keep clean sheets and if you can give this attack a platform and a foundation to go and perform, I think FC Dallas is going to win a lot of games.
I mean, you look at that Real Salt Lake game, they had the red card real early. So I mean,
Yeah,
you could argue that, it should have been 3-4-0 instead of just 1-0.
sure.
And I mean, even Eric Quill kind of mentioned like they dominated every stat except
Yep.
for just the balls in the back of the net. So I mean, what do you
Yeah.
look forward to in that regard? Like just building upon
Yeah.
the last.
Well, you create chances and you have the lion's share of possession. You should score more goals. Lucho Acosta missed a penalty kick, which is a problem. I think that you have two of your best players in Lucho Acosta and Petar Musa have both missed penalty kicks this year. So you're going to have to get better from the spot if you want to score more goals. But I think this team that they need to find who can be the third and fourth scoring for them. They have two guys in Lucho Acosta and Petar Musa who both have the ability to change games. They can both score goals and get assists. But if a team does a good job marking them out of the game, then you need to have secondary scoring options. That's just a fact, and that's a reality. I really like what I've seen from Logan Farrington. I think that he's a very good young player. He finds great spots amongst the attacking group, and he's proven to be a good finisher. Anderson Julio, he provides you that pace to be able to get at a back line. And he proved in Salt Lake that he can score goals if he gets chances. So Leo Chu has never been much of a goal scorer. He's more of a chance creator. But you have options in the attack. That's I think the good thing about what Eric Quill is trying to build right now is that you have options in the attack and you have different ways you could hurt teams. And so when you create chances, you want to see efficiency. And right now, I'm not seeing efficiency from FC Dallas in the attack. They have to be more efficient because, like you said, you mentioned a great point earlier. They were playing against a Real Saltine that got a red card early in the game. That's not going to happen every game. You're going to have to find creative ways to continue to create chances. And if you don't score goals, we've seen this back line can be a little bit leaky. You're going to get punished on the other end. And so I think FC Dallas is really good in between both boxes. They're just going to need to tighten up their back line and make sure they defend their goal a little bit better. And then they need to take advantage of the chances that they get in the attacking end, because they're not one of these teams that I think is going to create a ton of chances every game. They're not going to be blowing teams out 3-4-5-0. So when you get a chance, you need to bury it.
That kind of does it for me with the FC Dallas match. While I have you, could I have you answer some soccer at large questions?
No problem.
So I want to kind of go into the national team. So I mean, there's been rumors that supposedly Lucho wants to get his papers so that he could try to be on the U.S. national team. What are your thoughts behind that? Because I know he's obviously an Argentine national.
Well, I think that Lucho Acosta can absolutely add something to the men's national team. I just think it depends on what Mauricio Pochettino is looking for from his attacking players. But if you look at the way that the men's national team has typically built their rosters, especially dating back to the 2022 World Cup and how they played then, going through these latest Nations League games, and obviously there's no World Cup qualifying, but the best players on the team, and typically the best players in international soccer, are a little bit younger. They tend to skew a little bit younger. They tend to skew a little bit more as all action type of players. And Lucho Acosta is a throwback to an old school number 10. And so I think that the Argentine connection with Pochettino would be really strong. I think that we've seen Mauricio Pochettino, he wants to use a 10, and he trusts a 10 at times, depending on what the tactics of the game call for. Diego Luna stepped up, and I think he's one of the only U.S. men's national team players who can hold his head really high after this latest round of Nations League. And so I think that it would be a great thing for the U.S. if Lucho Acosta got his citizenship and was able to at least dip his toes in the water of the U.S. men's national team. Now, I'm not saying he would go and all of a sudden be this huge difference maker that he is in MLS on the international level. I think that remains to be seen. But Lucho Acosta is a really special player, and he has shown and proven time and time again that he can unlock any backline. And if you're playing against the Panama, which we saw the U.S. men's national team just lose to a week ago, a Lucho Acosta type player is a perfect foil for, I think, a deep backline, a backline that is difficult to break down. He's the type of player that can conjure up a moment of magic out of almost nothing. And so he might be a player that you don't use in every game, but certainly in these really tight CONCACAF games against teams who you dominate, he could be a very, very good weapon to have for Pochettino.
And you took the words right out of my mouth, because I wanted to bring up Diego Luna. How much, I guess brownie points or leeway with Pochettino do you think he gained in this window for potentially making the World Cup squad next year?
A lot. I think Mauricio Pochettino rates Diego Luna very highly. I think he loves his attitude. He loves his mentality first and foremost. Pochettino talked about after January camp when Diego Luna got his nose broken, he wanted to get back out on the field as soon as possible. He's got that fighter mentality, which is pretty rare to see for a creative player like Diego Luna. But Diego Luna has some really, really interesting tools. He's got some really fun possibilities in terms of, I think, his ceiling as a player. He's a creative player. He can score goals. He can create chances. He's done that with Real Salt Lake at a really high level the last 2 years. I think it still remains to be seen if he can be very effective at the international level, which is a step up in pace and quality. But by all accounts, Mauricio Pochettino rates him very highly. You don't play Diego Luna in the third place game and play him from the start against Canada over a player like Gio Reyna if you don't believe in his abilities. And so I think Diego Luna is a player to watch out for in the next year. I really hope that he gets called into the Gold Cup team. And I hope Pochettino gives him the keys and says, hey, listen, this is your team. I'm going to build the attack around you. Because I think Diego Luna is one of the most exciting prospects we've had in the U.S. player pool in a very long time.
And then, I mean, speaking of that player pool going into the World Cup, there's obviously going to be like strong contingency of, Dallas bred players. You have McKinney and Richards and all these people that have kind of grown up in the FC Dallas youth system and everything. Can you just speak to what the culture of soccer in Dallas might mean for this World Cup and moving forward?
Yeah. Well, Dallas is a hotbed. Dallas is a talent hotbed. And I know that more so than most because obviously I played 5 years there to start my career. And every time that we had a reserve game or every time that we played against a team from Dallas, the talent level just blows you away in terms of youth soccer there. It's no surprise to me that Dallas is a pipeline for players to go to Europe or players to go play for the U.S. men's national team. It's one of those cities that I think does a great job in player development. It's one of the clubs in FC Dallas that does a great job in player development. I think that's one thing that you can't take away from the Hunts, the ownership group with FC Dallas. I think they've really, really hammered home how important youth development is for that team. And a lot of it has to do with the culture in Dallas, the pickup soccer culture, a big Latin influence in Dallas. And so I've been really impressed with their ability to provide the national team with good players and players that have gone on to have great careers. So I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon. And I think FC Dallas is going to be the beneficiary of a lot of good players and talented players still coming up through that city.
And then my last one before I let you go, I know this very near and dear competition to this area's heart is the Lamar U.S. Open Cup, and so I wanted to ask you what it was like. I know you just retired, but coming out of retirement and playing with Sasha and Bradley and all them, and for the Des Moines team, what was that like, and what are y'all looking forward to in these next rounds to come?
Well, it was a great experience in the sense that I got to lace up the boots again and play with some old friends, but it was an absolutely miserable game. If you got to see it, I mean, the circumstances around the game were pretty dire. Mother Nature decided that it was not going to be her best showing. So 30-degree weather, 50-mile-an-hour winds, and a wintry mix, sleet just pounding you in the face was not something that I looked forward to. But we got the job done. We played against a young Sporting Kansas City 2 team who I thought were very good. I thought that they played great. They pressed us high up the field. They barely let us breathe. And so, we were fortunate to get a couple penalty kicks in the second half, and Sasha Question buried them. So it's just like old times, right? But I love the U.S. Open Cup. Maybe it's because I started my career in Dallas, and I got to meet Lamar Hunt a few times, and the competition's named after him, rightfully so. And so I always have a special place in my heart for the Open Cup. And so when Sash asked me to play, it was almost a no-brainer. I think as a team, we're just trying to have fun. We're just trying to create a buzz around the Open Cup because it's taken obviously a lot of hits the last couple of seasons. But I don't think our team is under any illusions that we're going to go on some miraculous run and be able to win the whole thing. I think that would be a little bit naive. All we want to do is take it one game at a time and just try to create some good memories and a good buzz around this wonderful competition. So April 2nd in Des Moines, a home game against Union Omaha, who knocked Des Moines out of the competition last year. Going to be a nice little grudge match, a nice little revenge game, and so should be very exciting.
Was that one of the worst playing conditions you've ever had in your career?
Ever. I don't know, Paul. I don't know how long you've been following FC Dallas or supporting FC Dallas, but the only game that can even hold a candle to that Sporting Kansas City 2 game in the Open Cup was a game I played with FC Dallas, and I believe it was in 2007. And it was a game against the New York Red Bulls at Giant Stadium, and it was about 35 degrees outside with swirling winds and freezing rain. And I just remember distinctly the New York Red Bulls goalkeeper at the time, I believe it was Ronald Waterroos. He had to leave the game. He had to get subbed out at halftime with what I think were hypothermia-like conditions that he was experiencing. So thankfully, no one had to deal with that in this last game, but it was similar. I was questioning my whole existence at that moment in time. So hopefully I don't have to play any games like that anymore.
How's it been for you going from the playing side now into the booth with the guys on Apple?
Yeah, it's been amazing. I've really enjoyed it. I think that it's been pretty seamless. I'm still learning. I'm still pretty fresh on the job. And so I think I'm just trying to be like a sponge. I'm trying to soak up as much information as I possibly can. I'm sure you can tell that I love talking about the game. I love the game. I talk too much about the game. And so, I like to think of myself as kind of this experienced encyclopedia of MLS information, just because I've been around the game so long and I've been around MLS so long. And when I was going through my head about, what I wanted to do when I hung up the boots, I wanted to stay involved in soccer. I didn't know if that was going to be in a coaching sense or in a media sense. And when I weighed all the pros and cons of everything, and my heart just told me that the media side would be something that I would really, really enjoy. And so I'm only a couple months in, but I'm enjoying everything. I think it always makes things easier when you like the people that you work with, and when you have a good camaraderie with the people that you work with. And so that's all a fact. And then I hope it comes through on the broadcasts. I hope people that watch us, enjoy watching us. They enjoy our banter. They enjoy our camaraderie, but they also enjoy our analysis, because that's our job. We have to analyze what we see. We have to analyze the games, and we have to analyze the league. And I think we do a pretty darn good job of that.